Welcome back into the Enrichment Sport. Slipped. For a couple of months, it was the Hall Salvage Sports Source, even when it was Enrichment. Now that it's the Sports Source, I'm going to say Enrichment. All right, Madisonville Marine brings you this segment. Aqua Patio, Sweetwater, Skeeter, G3. When it comes to selection, as in Selection Sunday, there is no better place to buy a boat than Madisonville Marine. I swear to you, go down and see for yourself. Bob Hodge was on his G3 from Madisonville Marine yesterday, were you not?
Yes, I was.
All right, and you enjoyed it?
And I had the best looking boat on the lake.
Hey, there you go, Madisonville Marine. Okay, I want to quickly look at today's action. We said there are no bid thieves. All 8 teams that are in action today will be in the NCAA tournament, it seems. We believe that St. Joe's is in there, VCU obviously, Duke, Virginia, Kentucky, Florida, Michigan State. Michigan expected to get maybe a 1 seed. All right, this segment might be a little hard for some of you to follow this, a little geeky, might be a little too over the top, but I've got to explain some of the numbers if you're going to understand how this formula works, and the goal is to show you the good and bad matchups that Tennessee may find in the NCAA tournament. We've had success doing this kind of thing before. Here are some of our past greatest hits, if we've got there we go. In 2006, on this show, we said Wichita State, if they wind up in Tennessee side of the bracket, would be a bad matchup. And Wichita State, 10th seeded, knocked off the number 2 seed Volunteers. In 2007, we went through every team in the field and said, gosh, if there's one dream matchup that will run with Tennessee and turn the ball over a lot, it's Long Beach State. UT got them. UT and Long Beach combined for the most points in an NCAA tournament game. In 2008, we listed both Butler and Louisville as bad potential matchups. Sure enough, UT needed overtime to beat Butler before losing to Louisville in Sweet 16. In 2010, everyone on the planet was saying Tennessee would be a 3 or 4 seed, but someone, I can't remember who that was on the show, but somebody said the math, a last game blowout to Kentucky, and some punches thrown at the end of the game would land Tennessee a 5 or 6 seed. Sure enough, they got that shocking 6th seed. And in 2012, we listed the most likely teams Tennessee would see if the NIT was coming to call. Sure enough, we named their first 2 opponents in the NIT. So in other words, we've had a little bit of success with this over the years. This year, I went about looking at Ken Pomeroy's website. He's a mathematician / hoop fan. KenPom.com is his website. Went through 12 in-depth statistics. Found that about 6 of them really seem to have a key with Tennessee's way of playing. I want to look at those 6, and as we get into that, I want to give you a little hors d'oeuvre here. This isn't one of the 6, but I thought this was interesting. The first one here, look at this, UT and when they're scoring. When Tennessee this year scored 71 or more, they are 16-0. They're 4-12 when they score 70 or less. So hope they score 71 in the tournament. Defensively, Tennessee is 13-3, lost yesterday. When allowing 64 points or fewer, they are just 7-9 when giving up 65 or more. So 71 and 64, key numbers for Tennessee. Now, on to the 6 key stats that make up our formula. The first one is effective field goal percentage. This is the same as regular field goal percentage, except 3-pointers are given 50% more credit. So it's a little more accurate. Tennessee was just 8-9 versus teams who had an effective field goal percentage of 49.8 or better. Against teams that were 49.7 or worse, they were 12-3. So those teams that were good and good from outside gave UT fits. The next one is turnover percentage or turnover rate. Simply shows a percentage of possessions ending in turnovers. Tennessee 10-3 against teams with a number that was pretty bad. Tennessee just 10-9 against teams that did a better job of taking care of the basketball. Okay, makes sense. The next one, you heard us talk about this one all year, height. Average height is simply that. They weight the height of each player by the amount of time they play on the court. And what you see there, height was an issue. The Vols were just 5-10 against teams that averaged a little more than 6'5" a man. Just 5-10. But look how good they were against teams that were less than 6'5" on average. 15-2. In other words, you don't want to see some Twin Towers team in the NCAA tournament. The next one, adjusted offensive efficiency. That is simply the number of points scored by a team per 100 possessions. We've told you that. While it might not look like it, this Tennessee team has been incredibly efficient. 29th best in America, much more efficient than Cuonzo Martin's first 2 teams and Bruce Pearl's last 3 teams. And against very efficient offenses like their own, Tennessee just 3-8. But against less efficient squads that their defense can smother, 17-4. So you can see there's a clear line of contrast in all of these stats. The next one, adjusted defensive efficiency. Once again, that's the number of points allowed over 100 possessions. Tennessee, fantastic, 16th best in America. They looked at against Florida. But look at the swing there. Against poorer defenses, Tennessee 18-4. Against better defenses, 2-8. 18-4, 2-8. Pretty big difference. Last one, but it is a big one. Adjusted tempo. We used to talk about this in the Bruce Pearl era. This is how many possessions a team would have in a 40-minute game. Pearl's teams were high tempo his first 3 years, slower his last 3. None were as slow as what Cuonzo Martin's team has done this year. They ranked 312th out of about 350 schools in terms of possessions per 40 minutes. Against fast teams, this is what's interesting. Tennessee 11-0. Against slower teams, Tennessee 9-12. Mark, what I find fascinating here, Pearl's teams wanted to face fast teams because they'd turn the ball over, run with them. Tennessee, you had the flex, you ran the cutters. Bottom line was they needed junk baskets. That was what the team thrived on. Cuonzo Martin team, though slower, wants the same kind of opponent, but for the opposite reason. They like to slow those teams down, get them out of their rhythm.
Well, yeah, and our greatest asset is our girth underneath the basket. It allows Jarnell and Jerron to wreak havoc on the offensive rebounding. It allows us to just pound it in there and attack the rim. Our guards are even long. And so if we can get them in the half court and attack the rim as opposed to getting in that up and down tempo, it obviously bodes well for us.
And the interesting thing, the other thing, you can make your case for who's the better coach, Pearl or Martin. I think you look at winning percentages at this stage in Martin's career, Pearl is the better coach. There's not going to get much argument there. All right. But here's the irony. This Tennessee team is the kind of team that would have given the Bruce Pearl teams absolute fits. If we were doing this 5 years ago with Pearl's teams, we'd say, oh my gosh, you don't want this Tennessee team. They do nothing that you want.
When we were there, and Gillespie was the coach at Kentucky, he played this style. We said all along, it was going to be impossible for us to beat Kentucky playing that type of style, Gillespie style, as opposed to a Calipari style. We thought we had a better chance.
Mark, you're a believer in some of these numbers. I know you're a stat geek like me. So you think there's some...
We got to think of a better term than stat geek.
Stat cool guy.
Stat guru.
Right.
Something.
How about numbers geek?
Yeah.
All right.
Just kidding.
Let's. I do want to show something. Well, here's the deal. Don't put up the graphic yet. Wanted to see if this worked. All right, I showed you 6 stats that you can see a difference between wins and losses is huge. There's a line that makes it just enormous. So I put those together. What does that tell us? If you use those 6 together, does it mean anything? So what I did was I applied it to Tennessee's schedule so far, everybody they played, and I looked at those 6 categories. Any team that had 4, 5, or 6 numbers in the red, numbers that didn't match up with Tennessee, those would be bad matchups. Any team that had 3, 2, 1, or 0, those are good matchups for Tennessee. So the teams that were bad matchups, take a look at this. There you go. Teams scoring 4 or more. Xavier, who beat Tennessee. UTEP, who beat Tennessee. Texas A&M, who beat UT twice. Missouri, Wichita State, North Carolina State. Virginia was the complete mix. They were the complete miss. However, that's a team that changed its entire everything after January 1st. But you look at that, Tennessee 3-11 versus the teams using this formula who had 4 or more bad numbers. Tennessee 17-1 against teams that had 3 or fewer of those bad numbers. The team that was the exception to the rule, Vanderbilt, the loss over there when Tennessee shot about 25%. Chuck?
Yes.
You think you could have made some money with this formula?
I tell you what, this is stat geek calculus. I mean, it takes it to a new level, and that's 17-1. That doesn't lie. I mean, that tells you right there, you follow that trend, you should do pretty well.
And that's what we're going to do here. When we come back, we're going to show you the teams that Tennessee could probably play in the NCAA tournament in the first round, or maybe the second round, judging by the bracket. We'll tell you of those teams while you're watching the bracket show tonight. Teams you do want to see Tennessee get, teams you don't want to see Tennessee get. Obviously, hot and cold is going to play into it, the sprained ankle, those kind of things. These games aren't played on paper. 17-1, 3-11. I think it's a pretty good indicator. Come on back on the Sports Source. The Sports Source.